Well, folks, good evening to you one and all, and welcome to our favorite place to be on a Wednesday night. Western Province Sports and GT coming to you live from the Second Gear Production Studios. And tonight we're going to be in some touring cars out at the Limelark Park Classic layout of the circuit, a pretty well-known circuit with a very well-known straight called the Sam Posey Straight. But joining me in the Second Gear Studios, the main productions, FC Nivote. Good day to you.
Hi, Gaza. Lovely to be here in studio with you guys for this race meeting. The Sports and GT Master Series continuing its final season for the 2022 year. And yeah, as Gary said, yeah, coming to you live from Limelark Park out in Lakeville, Connecticut, in the hamlet town of Salisbury. This circuit, of course, Gary, is the third oldest custom motorsport road racing venue. It's a natural terrain motorsport road racing venue, and alongside races like Road America and Willow Springs, it is the third oldest in the country, and we'll be getting some good action out here. Built in 1956, yeah, the layout hasn't changed much, and you can see by the naming from the corners and the straights that it is proper 1950s America. Not a lot of thought going into the naming of some of the corners. Riding on board here with you guys, we've got something a bit different happening here with qualifying and practice tonight. There wasn't a separate qualifying or practice. It was just a one long practice qualifying session. You can do as many laps as you want, and whoever's got the fastest time by the end of it, that's the man that gets pole position.
Well, having said that, they're about 22 minutes out there of the 30 minutes, and Francois Hubert, the teammate for, well, if he wins, we call him Mr. Lekezi. If he does anything less, we call him the Cheese Man.
The Cheese Man, yeah.
That was just decided before we went live. So, Francois Joubert, that is the man that is the quickest out there. He's done a 53.934, and it's just 7,000ths of a second slower than that. That is a Luc Lekezi, and that FC looks to be the exact same color scheme that he had on his Porsche that he was racing with last week, Wednesday.
Yeah, that is a beautiful color scheme, I must say. Always nice to see what Luke brings out onto the circuit. But John, like you said, not much between the top guys. 7,000ths of a second between Lekezi and Hubert. And then I was about to say third, but now in fourth, Johan Ferree is a bit down there. But Jaco Steyn just went and put up a blinding time of 53.745. That's 1/10 of a second, almost 2/10 of a second faster than what anybody else can do out there.
So, Jaco Steyn, and that's Francois Hubert in the AlphaTauri colors that's coming past him. That's in the Honda. Then we have Luc Lekezi, Mr. Luc Lekezi, 0.196. So that means that's 7,000ths of a second between him and his teammate. Then we have the ex-multiple main circuit champion, Johan Ferree. He's just 2/10 off the front end. And then Willem Botha, the man from Toyota Gazoo. He's not going to be around that much longer. He'll be on his way off to the Dakar in the not-too-distant future. And he finds himself 4,000ths of a second ahead of Graham Stephen.
Yeah, Graham Stephen currently in that sixth position. He's 3/10 of a second off of the elite pace. But as Gary said, they're 4,000ths off that fifth position. Willem Pinaar diving into the pits there in the Castrol car. He is almost half a second off of our pace setter there in that seventh position. Robbie Ting is going over the curbstone. You can hear that Audi screaming or creaking as it goes over the curbstones. Currently in that eighth position, 5/10 of a second off of the pole time. Peter Hubert currently finds himself in ninth. He's got about 2/10 of a second between himself and Robbie Tings, and he's out there in the Pennzoil Hyundai.
He's just about to come across the start-finish line. Let's see what he does. Does he come any quicker? Nope. Peter Hubert stays there exactly where he is, 0.704. Atti Nagel, him and Jaco Steyn were out practicing 2 nights ago, and he has dialed that one in very neatly. Is the third Audi out there on circuit. Nice to see Stephen McCarthy. He's back in the pits, so he's quite happy with that DeVault car. He says that it's looking pretty good. Timothy Stanton out there as well. in the Cool 17 car. That's the Honda. Raymond Duggan, a little bit further down than what we'd expect to see him. That's the classic N series color of the Hyundai. And that looks almost like an Elantra. Yeah,
Yep.
That's the Elantra that he's got out there, is Raymond Duggan. And Robbie Teams pumps himself up into that 7th position.
Yeah, Robbie Tings are moving up there ahead of Willem Pinaar as he parks that Gazoo Racing Hyundai out there. Sandro Bakari currently finds himself in that 14th position, 9/10 of a second off of our pole sitter. And what is that? One? Yeah, not even one. That's about 5,000ths of a second between Bakari and Duggan for that 13th and 14th position. Herman Lazarus, the first man to be over a second behind our pole sitter. He is making his way back out onto the circuit in the cheaper cars Audi and looking to improve on that time ahead of Colin Plitt in 16.
FC, that's a cheap shot. More than a second. 3,000ths of a second he finds himself, and he's still in the top 15 as well. Colin Plitt just a little bit further back, but he's in the pits. He's pretty happy with his timing so far. Peter van der Spey on his out lap, so he's getting some temperature into the tires and get it going as best he can. What I can tell you is I have done a couple of laps with the Audi. I don't know the Honda, to be very honest with you, and I don't know the Hyundai, to be very honest with you. But what I can tell you is that Audi, to dial in temperature into those tires and into the brakes, it takes you anything up to 1.5 laps. Now, I don't know about the others. I haven't heard the guys complaining about it. I would tend to think it would be sort of same and similar. And even though everybody is so close to one another in terms of times on the heated up system, I think that you might just find that in the first lap and a half, there's going to be a couple of casualties where the guys go at this pace that they are doing now, and that on the colder brakes and the colder tires. And why I say the brakes is when you go out, iRacing has got to such a level that with these touring cars, when you climb on the brakes and the brakes is cold, it actually squeaks. You can hear the sound of the brake pads. It's like you wash the car and it's got a bit of rust on it kind of thing on the discs, and you actually hear that sound. And when you climb on the brakes the 4th, the 5th, the 6th time, you hear the sound starting to change, and then you realize, okay, there's much more brake pedal underneath my foot. That with 1 3/4 minutes to go, it's just about there. And once again, Jaco Steyn, well, he's parked it in the pits already, and he is the fastest man out there by 24,000ths of a second from Francois Joubert, who is in the AlphaTauri car in the Honda, and Willem Botha right in there as well. At the moment, Willem finds himself on the second row of the grid, and he's done well, Luc Lucchesi, so we will refer to him as Mr. Luc Lucchesi, not the cheese man. He finds himself on the second row of the grid.
Yeah, Luke, out there on the second row. A lot of the guys having improved on their times to get a little bit closer there to Jaco Steyn. More noticeably was Francois Joubert and Willem Botha. Lucchesi still almost 2/10 of a second off the pace there. But you know, where Luke is his strongest is in race trim. Yeah. That's where you see Luke work his way through the field. But he's got to work hard because Willem Botha is on song this season.
Yes.
He's really putting in the time and effort to up his game. Graham Stephen, also somebody you can never discount out there. He currently finds himself in that 6th position, 3/10 of a second off the pace of our pole sitter.
Comes up towards the start-finish line. Can he bump himself up onto the second row of the grid? Nope, it's not going to be. It's going to stay exactly the same, and that's the last option that he had. It's 29 minutes, 41 seconds. So that's the last chance that he had to go any quicker. Francois Joubert already on the front row of the grid. Willem Botha coming up towards the line. Can he go to the front row? Nope, he's not going to make it either. Willem Botha, a 54.120 that holds him on the second row of the grid. So if you think there's 300ths of a second between Willem and Luc Lucchesi on the second row of the grid, and there is a little bit less than 1/10 of a second between Johan Fourie and Graham Stephen on the next row of the grid, there's 11,000ths between Robbie Teams and Willem Pinaar on the 4th row of the grid. it just doesn't get any better. The first time that there is anything realistically different is between the likes of Raymond Duggan and Peter Hubert. And no, in fact, not, because it's 699 and 704. So 5,000 between the two of them. So the top of 14 up to and including Sandra Bakari with the 30 minutes done, they find themselves all within 1 second of the leading and fastest time out there. And that'll bring qualifying pretty much to a close. I think as the guys finish this lap off, you'll probably find when the computer gets to 31, it's actually going to click off. And then we'll be able to see the official grid as such when they are just about good to go. Luke Lucchese hasn't given up on it. He says if the computer keeps on running for a couple of seconds, I'll put in another one, and I'll see if I can maybe just pick up another lap time. But he's got a long way to go around. The computer should have kicked off. Oh, there it does now, eventually. So it gave them a little bit of extra time. And let's see what that grid's going to look like. Front row of the grid, once again, a man that won his first race recently, Jaco Steyn.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn on pole position alongside him, Francois Hubert. Then row number 2 sees Willem Botha line up alongside Luke Lucchese. Row number 3 sees Johan Fourie in P5 with Graham Stephen filling up row number 3 in P6.
That's going to be pretty interesting stuff to see how that front lot is going to play out. With Graham Stephen there, Robbie Tings, Willem Pina, Atti Nagel, and Raymond Duggan, with Peter Hubert and Stephen McCarthy rounding out the top 12. From Timothy Stanton, Sandra Bakari, Hamron Lazarus, Colin Plitt, Andre Steenkamp. That was pretty late to get into the practice session. Peter van der Spey from Gerald Maget, Ian Riddle, Leonardo Bakari, and Swace Hubert. That's how they line up on the circuit.
Yeah, 22 starters for this race. It will be a standing start, so everybody making their way to the grid as we say hi there to the local Lime Rock Park gnome. As the guys line up on the grid waiting for a couple of guys there, Swace Hubert still needs to make his way out there. And then as soon as everybody is ready to go, we'll have those lights and we'll be racing at Lime Rock Park, coming to you from Connecticut, United States.
Well, look at all those lovely color schemes. The guys putting in lots of effort, just making the cars look as nice as what they can. Just about everybody gets himself up onto the grid. You can't miss the blue car there of Herman Lazarus. And look at that. Everybody with their own personal color schemes the way they want it to be.
Yeah, as we hear some of the guys making their way to the pits there, or to the grid. Still waiting for Swace Hubert. Not sure what is keeping him. But as soon as everybody is there and they are happy to get going, we'll get those lights on the screen and we'll be racing out here at Lime Rock Park. Jaco Steyn will be the man that down that straight into turn number 1, Big Bend. There we've got the lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and we are racing at Lime Rock Park. Everybody gets off the line quick. Jaco Steyn, Francois Hubert, Willem Pinaar, all of them in there. Look at that man work his way through. That's Johan Fourie. He got past Luke Lucchese as they all barrel down into turn number 1. It looks like everybody got away clean. A lot of the guys, or some of the guys, lost some positions on the start there. But it's all good to go for that front 6 with Jaco Steyn, Francois Hubert, as we see Stephen McCarthy taking his Hyundai to do a bit of gardening.
Oops, yeah, getting it, the Pennzoil car running a little bit wide there as well. And he brings that one back together. I think that, in fact, was Willem Pinaar, I think, was the one that went slightly wide. I think it was Stephen McCarthy that did the off-circuit. Let's have a quick look. Yep, that was correctly spotted. That was Stephen McCarthy. He got it back on circuit. And then it was Andre Steenkamp that ran into a bit of a problem there as well. He also ran it a little bit on the wide side. Oops, a little bit of contact. He takes the RDSA car, or the Audi, and just make sure that there's not too much contact. But back to the front of the grid, starting off in P1 pole position, it's Jaco Steyn from Francois Hubert. Is Jaco Steyn going to put his second win against his name at the end of tonight? It's very possible.
It is quite possible, Gary, for Jaco Steyn. He just needs to keep his cool. He's got a hard-charging Francois Hubert out there in second position in the Honda. But Jaco Steyn has shown immense pace throughout this qualifying and the start of this race. Willem Pinaar had a bit of a bumper basher there with Robbie Tings, and that parks him into the tyre wall. going into the uphill.
Yeah, that I think is going to make him just click it straight back to the pit. So coming back out into the front main, it's Jakustein from P1 pole position. Underneath the Sam Posey bridge he goes. In there behind them is Francois Hubert from the second to pole on the front of the grid. Willem Pina right in there. Luc Lucchesi that started on the second row of the grid holds himself in that top four. Johan Ferry that started on the third row of the grid, he holds onto that position as well. And in fact, it was the Golf Hyundai of Graham Stephen that was right in there as well. So pretty much as they came off the line, that's how we find them at this stage of the fight. Robbie Teens having a bit of a problem. Let's see what happened to Robbie Teens as he works his way. Oh, just running a little bit wide. That's turn number 3 that he works his way out to the outside. That's the right-hander, and he gets it back onto the circuit. But that dropped him quite a long way down, did Robbie Teens. Let's go back to the front end of the field, and let's have a look at the gaps that we've got up front. And that gives us just a bit of indication as to exactly where we are at. Graham Stephen with Johan Ferry, Luc Lucchesi, and Willem Botha very close to one another. Oh, running off the track. The leader off the circuit. It's Jakustein that's run it wide. And look at that. Everybody just piling through there. Johan Ferry made it through as well. Graham Stephen is the man that's now directly behind him. 0.3 of a second between Willem Botha and Francois Hubert as they work their way through the right and the left-hander. And now they're going to work their way into the uphill. There we go. That's the uphill section. And now through in towards West Bend. Oh, very high speed. Just one gear down. Keep the hammer down. Use the curbstones both sides through the downhill section. It's called the downhill section. And what an apt name. Goes downhill. Oh, look at that. Look, Lucchesi using the whole track and just a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that just shows you how close this touring car racing is out here on the circuit. Oh, Willem Botha gets right up to that back bumper of Francois Hubert as they make their way through the, was that the right-hander? Now they're going to go into the left-hander as they're going to work their way up towards the uphill. It is Francois Hubert that leads this one. Willem Botha just 0.2 of a second behind them. Lucchesi another 0.2 down in that third position. He's starting to dial in that Audi. You can see how he's glued to that back bumper of Willem Botha, and anything can still happen in this race with pretty much 45 minutes left in this 50-minute race.
Look at that. You can see directly behind Luc Lucchesi. There's Johan Ferry as they do the downhill. This is going out into the front main and by the start-finish line. And off they go. You see there the pits on the left-hand side. Francois Hubert staying ahead, doing a 54.108. That's the fastest lap so far. We're riding on board with Willem Botha. That's Luc Lucchesi. That's behind him. Behind that, Johan Ferry. And the recovery of a Jakustein is happening just behind that.
Yeah, Jakustein also improved on that lap time. Goes 54.038 on that last lap to try and regain that position that he's lost. He's glued to that back. Just look at that. That is second, third, fourth, fifth, basically occupying the same set or same space of a circuit as they go through the uphill, heading now down the back straight towards West Bend. There they go through turn number 6. Now they're going to head towards the downhill as they go underneath the Haggerty Bridge. That is a close battle for second, third, fourth, fifth, even 6 in there, as Francois Hubert is now capitalizing on this battle behind him to try and get a gap between himself and Willem Botha.
So Jakustein right in there. He's trying to work his way past Johan Ferry, but you don't get past Johan Ferry that easy. You don't hold on to Johan Ferry that easy. And if you think that Johan Ferry is not only covering against Jakustein, who was the fastest qualifier, he's also got to try and get onto the back of Luc Lucchesi as well. Now, we know that Luc Lucchesi is, in general, the fastest man out there, but he does tend to push the envelope. And if you can push him hard enough, you might be able to create a mistake out of him. Can Jakustein get a mistake out of Johan Ferry? Very unlikely. Can Johan Ferry get a mistake out of Luc Lucchesi? Well, you first got to catch him.
Yeah, you definitely first have to catch him. But they've all got a problem. They've got Willem Botha ahead of them, who's also been super duper quick. But he also tends to push the envelope a little, and he finds that edge where the car lets go a lot quicker than some of the other guys. But speaking of fastest lap, Luc Lucchesi goes faster with a 1:07.26. He's the man on the move.
I think he's got his headgear plugged into the commentary, and he heard that guy what's his name? Johan Ferry.
Johan Ferry.
Yeah, that guy was directly behind him. Up, dust, and disappear. Create a 9/10 of a second gap between himself and Johan Ferry. So now Johan Ferry has got into the situation with 8 laps down, 7 minutes of the 50-minute race, where he has now got a bit of a gap in front of him, and it is Luke Lucchese that's starting to push the envelope now to see if he can get a bit of pressure onto Willem Botha. Who's going to crack first? Will it be Francois Joubert? I don't think so. Francois doesn't make mistakes very often.
Yeah, Francois is one of the most consistent men out there in the lead of this race. Willem Botha, he's hanging on to the back end there of Joubert, but he's got a hard-charging Lucchese in that third position, who is gaining on his backside, and he's also pulling away from Johan Ferry. In turn, Jaco Steyn is, look at him, he's glued to the back bumper of that Veloster, and he's going to try and put his nose up in the inside there. He's going to try and make a move. Oh, there might have been a little bit of contact between them, but Johan Ferry just knows where to place that Hyundai to not be unsettled by Jaco Steyn.
A bit of a strange body kit in the back of that Veloster. We know what the local Veloster looks like, and it almost looks like you've taken a bit of a U shape and stuck it onto the back of the car to make enough width for those back tires, although you can clearly see the design at the top of the car. But look just a little bit further forward, first, second, and third, everybody using as much of that circuit as what they can, and now starting to have a look up on that inside line. Is he going to be able to make that passing maneuver? No, he's not going to be able to. He would have liked to have had a look out the window and seen that car alongside him, but it's not going to happen.
There's a big fight for that second position. Luke Lucchese seemed to have had a look there at Willem Botha, but he had to climb out of it just before they got to that corner, as Willem Botha is now under a lot of pressure for that second position. There's 0.06 of a second between the two of them going into this one. Luke Lucchese is going to try and make a way past. He's going to dive for the inside. No, but Willem Botha closes off that line. He says, Mr. Lucchese, you're going to have to work for this.
Talking about Willem Botha has been a little bit marginal. Let's have a look at this one. He clips and just touches the grass, and the computer says that was very close. We'll register that as a off-track using the curbstone onto the grass. Very easy to lose the tail end from there, Graham Stephen, but holds on to it very nicely and keeps it all together. Look at that. Johan Ferry having another look. He's going to have a look up on that inside line, and it's him and Jaco Steyn. Jaco Steyn, can he make it one work? Yes, he does. So Jaco Steyn passed on Johan Ferry. Let's have a closer look at that. How exactly did he do it? Johan Ferry went wide.
He went very wide.
Number one. And Jaco gave him fair space, but had good drive into turn number 2. And Johan said, okay, fine, let's not make contact at this stage of the fight. Remember, right behind me is Graham Stephen as well, to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So a nice little passing maneuver there. But then it was also Andre Steenkamp that was making up places earlier on, as he went up on that inside line, and he made up on Gerald Maget and made up one position. Let's go back to the front end of the field. This man doing it all right, Francois Joubert.
Yeah, Francois Joubert, the man in the lead of this race. And what's strange enough is I want to go down the order of the field here, but the racing's so close up front, we don't get a chance. But Willem Botha, he is dropping a little bit further back from Francois Joubert, but he's still got a hard-charging Lucchese in that third. Steyn has moved up into a fourth position. Johan Ferry in that fifth place, with Graham Stephen in sixth. That whole group has managed to pull away from Atti Nagel, who finds himself out there in that seventh position, about 3 seconds down the road, ahead of Peter Joubert.
Johan Ferry looks like he's actually battling a little bit. Let's look at the lap times because, he started in fourth, he's down in fifth. Not a train smash. A 54.5, a 54.3 by Jaco. Graham Stephen, a 54.665. So 1600ths of a second between himself and Graham Stephen. So I think that's about as bad as it's going to get for Johan Ferry, unless Graham Stephen can turn up the week. Let's go a little bit further down. As you said, Atti Nagel. They've got a little bit away from Atti Nagel, but not a train smash. He's right in there. He's got 3 seconds on that man in the Pennzoil car. That's one of the Hondas, and the Hyundai, should I say. That's Peter Joubert in there behind him, Ray and Duggan. Then it is Robbie Teens is the next man coming through there. Behind Robbie Teens, here they come, and that is Sandro Bakari with Timothy Stanton right in there behind him, and they're not exactly getting away from the rest of the pack. There comes Peter van der Spey. Peter van der Spey with less than a second between himself and Colin Plitt.
Yeah, Colin Plitt there in that 14th position. He's not exactly getting away from Stephen McCarthy either. Stephen McCarthy's right there behind him in the DeWalt Hyundai, sitting at 9/10 of a second behind him. Ian Riddle, he has a bit of an issue out there, not understanding the assignment of the pink car. He went and made it blue and then stuck a pink cartoon on it with Peppa Pig, is Ian Riddle. But he's out there in 16th position, 8 seconds off the pace there from Stephen McCarthy, with Andre Steenkamp, Gerald Maget, Herman Lazarus, and Leonardo Bakari bringing up the rear of the field.
Timothy Stanton getting pretty close to Sandro Bakari. There he comes in with that cool car. And he was trying to have a look up on the inside line, was Timothy Stanton on a Sandro Bakari. Sandro Bakari a little bit lower down than what we've accustomed to seeing him. This is where he used to be. And then in the last couple of races, we've seen Sandro creeping up 9th, 8th, 7th, anything up to 6th position. And Sandro, well, this time is a little bit further down, but still having a pretty good race out there. Graham Stephen holding onto the back of Johan Fourie just a little bit further forward.
Yeah, well, look, Gary, we've been used to seeing guys like Johan Fourie, Luke Lucchesi being the cream of the crop, but the quality of the field has increased so much, not just over the last 3 years, but more specifically over the last 6 months. The level of racing we've seen from these guys have improved immensely, and that's why you've got these tight battles happening out there. Francois Hubert leads them ahead of Willem Butter, Luke Lucchesi, and Jaco Steyn. That's your top 4, but we are riding on board with Colin Plitt in the 14th position. Now in the Golf Hyundai, getting closer and closer to the back end there of Johan Fourie.
Let's just have a look at a lap that's through turn 1 after the Sam Posey Bridge. There we go through Big Bend, coming up towards the left-hander, 0.4 of a second between himself and Johan Fourie. A short little squirt, and then, well, they call the complex there the S's through the right-hander, the no-name straight, literally called the no-name straight. Now watch this one, lift off slightly, get the hammer down, and look at, as you go over the top of the hill, it gets very, very light underfoot. You've got to be in a straight line as you come over the top of the hill, or it's going to throw you at the scenery, and you're heading straight towards the scene of the accident. A nice drive through that corner. Oh, he might even get a run on Johan Fourie. He came through there very neatly through 5th gear, holding it all the way to 6th. Nope, it looks like Johan Fourie's got the legs. Hyundai versus Hyundai, nothing much in that one. That's what 0.18 of a second looks like with, look at that, Hyundai Veloster there in front of him. Onto the brakes, takes a completely different line. Johan Fourie going to have to be on the defensive. He went in a little bit deep. He had to close that line off very neatly. I think Graham Stephen is actually very much on the attack, but looks like a Jaco Steyn is very close as well.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn having caught up to the backside there of Luke Lucchesi. And who was that? Was that Lucchesi?
Yeah, that was Lucchesi.
That was Lucchesi having a bit of a moment there. As that's not something you want to do when you've got Jaco Steyn charging up behind you.
No, but remember, Jaco Steyn was the fastest man in qualifying. He was the pole sitter. He led it for a period of time and going through under the Sam Posey Bridge just after where he is now. This was what happened to him. It was under braking. He just ran it a little bit wide, touched it on the grass, dropped himself down to 5th position, and now he worked his way from 5th past Johan Fourie and back up into that 4th, and now looking at the back of Luke Lucchesi. Now, Luke Lucchesi has got Willem Butter very much in his sights. And I think Willem has got to be pretty aware, because Luke will dive into any little gap that you give him. And I think that's just making that a little bit of a difference for Francois Hubert. Listen to the revs. Oh, there you can hear as the revs just peaks quickly as you go over the top of the hill. So I think this is playing into the hands of Francois Hubert as these guys give one another a hard time. Jaco Steyn's on the move.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn, he got that time down to about 1/10 of a second. There it is, back again. He's right on that back. But Willem Butter makes a big mistake, goes off, and this might bring him into trouble. That opens the door for Jaco Steyn to dive towards the outside. Lucchesi's got the inside line, so he's got the faster line, but can Jaco Steyn work his way through there? He got carried a little bit more speed into that. Now he's going to go for the right-hand side dives back towards the inside. This is going to be an epic battle.
That looked like left foot braking that was going there by Luc Lucchese, ex-world karting champion that finds himself there just ahead of Jaco Steyn. Willem Botha just in front of that. So Willem Botha now finds himself 2.3 off the back of Francois Joubert. He was actually a little bit lucky to hold on to that. Oh, it's so light when you go over the top of that crest. But there's nothing much between them whatsoever. Johan Fourie finds himself a little bit further back. Let's just look back from this motor car. Where's Johan Fourie? There he comes over the rise. That's Johan Fourie. And right in there behind him is Graham Stevens. So Graham Stevens holding to within a half a second of the back of Johan Fourie at this stage of the fight.
Yeah, so going underneath the Sam Posey bridge there on the Sam Posey straight into turn number 1 that you're riding on board there with Jaco Steyn, who's currently sitting in that 4th position. Johan Fourie finds himself in 5th, 1.5 seconds down the road. Graham Stephen is glued to that back bumper of his in a 6th position. Then Ati Nochel having a bit of an uneventful race out there in 7th position. He's 6 seconds off the pace there, but he's still 2.7 seconds ahead of this man in the Pennzoil car. That is Peter Joubert.
Yep, behind that is the Boltman, Robbie Teens, a man that I got to meet face-to-face at the one of the events that we were at Cologne International. I was walking down the pit lane, and this guy stops me and he says, "Hi, Gary." I said, "Hi, how's it?" He says, "You don't know who I am, do you?" I said, "I'll be very honest, no, I don't." He says, "You might have heard of that guy, Robbie Teens." I said, "Robbie, is it you?" He says, "It's me." I said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm assisting these guys on race day. That's why I'm down here at Killarney." And what a fantastic guy to have a chat with. Robbie Teens out there in the Toyota Gazoo entry, the one of many Hyundais out there, and doing a lovely job. But he's not going to have it all that easy, because Raymond Duggan, one of the success stories of 2022, is not that far behind him. And there's a big gap back to Colin Plitt. So not a problem for what's happening behind him. Let's go back to Jaco Steyn, because he's all over Luc Lucchese once again.
Yeah, all over the back bumper of the Audi there of Luc Lucchese is Jaco Steyn. It's back down to less than 1/10 of a second. He's going to go for the inside line. They're side by side coming through that corner. It's all to play for down the main straight, the Sam Posey straight. Lucchese is in trouble because he's got a hard-charging Jaco Steyn on his outside.
Yep, is he going to be able to close it off? Well, Luc Lucchese, not easy to rack. Oh! That's very close. That's very close. I think Luc Lucchese does a lot of left foot braking, if you ask me. That previous shot that we had, you could see he was mid-corner just before the apex, and you saw the brake lights come on, but it didn't slow down that much. I think it was just more to settle the car as such, and that's where the experience comes from karting, where you left foot brake. But look at that, Jaco Steyn all over the back. In fact, Graham Stephen is doing exactly the same thing with Johan Fourie.
Sure, a couple of big names being taken down here this evening. There's contact! There's contact between Lucchese and Jaco Steyn, and that wipes both of them out as Johan Fourie gets gifted a 3rd position.
Well, let's have a look at how that one turned out. We'll have a bit of an idea. Yep, they make light contact, and unfortunately that affects both of them. Oh, he stops right across the circuit. And everybody's got to make a plan to try and get around there. So Jaco Steyn, well, that was a very disappointing one for him. He dives it up on the inside. He's almost there, and I don't think Luke saw him. I think he was completely in the blind spot of Luc Lucchese. Now he's standing 90 degrees sideways. You see, he's trying to get that car. Do you go forward? Do you go backwards? He says, well, I'm just going to go backwards, and let's hope we can get this one sorted out. How's that? Oh, look at that. Somebody whacked Luc Lucchese, and that took him back off the circuit. So Luc Lucchese, as he was trying to get going again, bang, somebody hits into him. And that, well, I think that's pretty much going to total his car as he worked his way back onto the circuit, unsighted coming through there as the Jaco Steyn car was standing there as well. And I think that is Andre Steenkamp, I think that actually went in there. Let's just see, did I get that one correct? Yep, that's the right part of the circuit. Oh, no, Andre Steenkamp decided all by himself to change the shape of that motor car.
Yeah, not happy with how the Germans designed that Audi is Andre Steenkamp. Jaco Steyn into the pits there, making his way into the pits. Not a happy chappy with that one. He is down there in that 13th position, losing a lot of ground there. but a lot of the guys in the pits getting some damage sorted. But this man is smiling all the way. He hasn't put a foot wrong this whole evening. Francois Hubert in the AlphaTauri Honda, being chased down by Willem Botha in that second position in the Hyundai Elantra. And Graham Stephen, he's a happy chap. He's out in third now as Johan Fourie dives into the pits.
Yep, he comes into the pits. So the next one to come through, there will then be Atti Nagel. And let's see if we can pick up Atti. Atti's already gone through. Where's Peter Hubert? He comes through there as well and makes up a position. So Peter Hubert ahead there of Robbie Teens. Robbie Teens, in fact, passed Peter Hubert at that position. So that is how that one played itself out. Johan Fourie there in the pits. He finds himself a long, long way down. He's down to 11th position. But how many times have we seen Johan Fourie pit completely different to everybody else? And later on the race, you just find he just somehow ends up at the front.
Yeah, that is an old trick of Johan Fourie, working his way back out onto the circuit there in a 13th position. Sandro Bakari is going to try and make a move, but Johan Fourie says, no, I'll have this position, thank you. You still need to pit. Don't battle me for this.
Let's have a look at the pit stops so far. Who's been in, who's been out. Johan Fourie, the leading man who has been into the pits already. As I see somebody else has just gone in. Well, Jaco Stein's in the pits. Leonardo Bakari is in the pits. Gerald Maget is in the pits at the moment. And, well, with Johan Fourie being the leading man that's been into the pits, when is Francois Hubert going to dive in? It's a matter of time. We're 23 minutes into 50, so we're almost at the halfway mark. Does the AlphaTauri entry, the Honda, work its way into the pits this time around? It comes flying out of the corner and straight past the pit entry.
I don't know how this is possible, but Stephen McCarthy was showing as the leader of this race, but he's in the pits.
Yeah, no, I think that's a net code of a type that you have to actually pay a subscription for. Sandro Bakari's in there as well, and Willem Botha. Oh, Willem Botha's in as well. So let's have a look at the front end of the field. There's Francois Hubert. He's gone through. There's Atti Nagel. He's gone through. Robbie Teens, he has not been into the pits yet, so that brings the Boltman up into that third position. Peter Hubert, nice to see him in the top five once again. And then of the guys that's in the pits is Willem Botha. Peter van der Spey doesn't go into the pits, so he goes past those guys. So Willem, Graham, Timothy, Raymond, and all of those guys. Oh, Colin Pitt has now gone into the pits as well. Let's just bring that slide up that we can see exactly who's been in, who has not. Francois Hubert dives into the pits.
Yeah, Francois Hubert dives into the pits there. Johan Fourie was hoping to be a little bit closer towards Willem Botha with that earlier stop, but it's actually cost him. Because if you look at that, Willem Botha and Graham Stephen all both pitted as well, and Johan is quite a bit down from them unless he's fueled very heavy and not have to pit again with it being a 50-minute race. But Francois Hubert in the pits now. Peter Hubert leads this one out in the Hyundai as both Francois Hubert and Atti Nagel and Robbie Teens makes his way into the pits as well.
Peter van der Spey goes straight past, and that makes him, apart from Peter Hubert, the just about only three of them in the top 10 that have not been into the pits. Timothy Stanton also not been into the pits yet. Let's see, how's Timothy looking? Oh, that's looking pretty fine. Pretty cool, if you ask me, is Timothy Stanton. And he's still got to go into the pits. So how did that play out for Johan Fourie? Not that great. He started on the third row of the grid, and he finds himself now in a 7th position. But there is 3 cars ahead of him that still have to do pit stops. Into the pit lane goes Peter Hubert. In he goes. And where is Peter van der Spey? Surely Peter van der Spey is going to go in now as well. 25 minutes, 51 seconds. That is gone. If he dives in, that means that Francois Hubert, no, he doesn't. He's fueled that fat. He's fueled that one fat, and he's going straight through. So Peter Hubert drops down. Peter van der Spey, when last did you say Peter van der Spey leads them out?
Lovely to say those words again. Peter van der Spey leads this race, but he still has to do that pit stop. He's doing very slow times. He's doing 56 seconds a lap, where the rest of the field is doing 54, 53. So Peter van der Spey will come under fire from your race leader pretty soon. There we see your race leader, Francois Hubert and Willem Botha. They're stacked there behind Peter van der Spey to make a move. If van der Spey doesn't dive into the pits now, they're going to make a move on him pretty soon as they go up into the uphill.
I'm pretty sure that you're going to find that he's going to have to go in now. Let's see what happens. Yeah, he moves across to the right-hand side. Well, he's either being nice to them or he's intending to go into the pits. And let's see what happens. Does he dive into the pits or not? Peter van
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Peter van der Spey goes into the pits. So that means Francois Joubert goes to the front end of the field once again. Willem Botha is right in there as well. That is the battle that we're going to be watching going down for the last 23 seconds. Who was that went off the circuit? That was Jaco Steyn, was it? Yes, yeah. Jaco Steyn. This is the second time he's found himself again off, and that's in fact in turn number 1. That's after the Samposi Bridge, after the Samposi Straight, and that's the second time that he's out to break himself in that position. So that's actually cost him pretty badly. Peter van der Spey, that was leading, works his way out of the pits and back onto the circuit. Still brings him inside the top 10 as we go back to Robbie Teens. That's not that far behind Peter Joubert, who's still just outside of the top 5.
Yeah, Peter Joubert currently sitting in that 6th. Robbie Teens right on his case. Let's look at that gap close down as they go down towards turn number 6. And now underneath the Haggerty Bridge towards the downhill. That's turn number 7. And back onto the main straight. Robbie Teens and Peter Joubert battling it out there. Teens getting closer and closer. Just look at that gap decrease as they make their way underneath the Samposi Straight Bridge now. Late on the brakes goes Teens, but he's not close enough to make a lunge, and Peter Joubert survives another day.
Oh, look at that left foot braking in the middle of the corner as well. He's looking pretty strong, is Peter Joubert. He covered his line initially. He was quite comfortable going through turn 1, through turn 2. He doesn't use as much of the curve zone through turn 3. So he's not feeling too much pressure from Robbie Teens, although I find it surprising because Robbie Teens is very close.
Robbie Teens extremely close. Oh, that's what you want, to have the car almost go sideways over that rise. That is definitely going to cost you in the long run, and that might give Robbie Teens a chance to get a little bit closer. But he's also lost some time due to that little bump, as he's now dropped down to 0.3 of a second, but fighting to work his way back. Just look at how close it is. Back onto the main straight they go as they battle it out there for 6th and 7th position.
It's just that little bit of extra little bit that you need that you don't get. You get the slipstream, but the straight is just not long enough to be really able to make use of it. And that Pennzoil car of Peter Joubert staying just ahead of him. I see just a little bit further back. Oh, that was the back end that slipped away pretty badly. That's going to bring them into very close contention. Look at that. Right in there behind now. 1/10 of a second. Robbie Teens on Peter Joubert. I don't think he will take a chance and dive out at that point. That's not Robbie Teens' style.
Yeah, that was very close. You could see he was considering it, but the moment you get out from that slipstream, you really lose quite a chunk of speed as well. So you need to have a nice build-up of speed to make a move like that stick. And if you want to do it, it'll be here on the main straight, on the Samposi Straight. But now he's dropped back a little bit, but he's gaining ever so slightly. But the moment you get out of that slipstream, he's going to go for the inside. But Peter Joubert just fends him off. He runs wide.
Wow.
He runs wide, and that gifts Robbie Teens that position. The pressure just got a little bit too much there for Peter Joubert.
You know what? Sportsman of the day I give to Peter Joubert. You know why? He made enough space. He saw the man coming, and he thought, let's not make contact. Let me go as wide as I can. But at the pace that he was at that stage of the fight, he actually blew himself out. All over the grass for them, Botha. Keep the hammer down. Don't back off. Bang! Back onto the circuit he goes. So, yes, I think Peter Joubert, a Sportsman of the Day award for that one. Giving somebody space, costing yourself at the end of the day. But in the terms of good sportsmanship, brilliant stuff. Willem Botha all over the back of Graham Stephen. And Graham Stephen finds Francois Joubert slowly but surely walking away at the front end of the field.
That little off-track session cost Willem Botha because Graham Stevens actually gotten the jump on him. As we ride on board here with Herman Lazarus in this replay, let's have a look what happened with him heading towards turn number 1. Just completely misses the turn. It's the other way, Mr. Lazarus.
All else fails, turn right. Let's have a look at what happened with Willem. This was when we saw him outbreak himself. He runs it wide. That's the exact same situation that happened with Jaco Steyn, the man that started in P1 pole position. lost the lead at that specific point on the circuit, and then had a second time that something went wrong for him under braking. Here's another shot of Willem Botha, obviously pushing very, very hard, and we've seen him before clipping the grass at that position, and the computer actually saying, you are right on the edge, there's no doubt about it. I see Ian Riddle passed Luke Lucchese, and then Luke Lucchese passed Ian Riddle. That's a bit of a strange one. That must have been, that was in the traffic, and that's why we had that situation. He keeps the hammer down, and then he works his way around the outside on Ian Riddle, the BMW racer from PE, and off they go down the straight. So, FC, let's have a look from the top down. Francois Joubert with 32 minutes gone over 50 minutes in this race. Lime Rock Park with touring cars.
Yeah, we had some close racing, but now the field has spread out after the first round of pit stops. Francois Joubert leads them out there in the Alpha Tauri Honda. Graham Stephen has worked his way up into second position in the Gulf Oil Hyundai Elantra. Willem Botha sits there in that third position. He's 1.7 seconds as Sandro Beccari loses the tail end of his car coming through that corner, but Willem Botha is sitting safely in that third position. Let's have a look here. What happened to Sandro Beccari? Just got the tail end.
I wanted you to go through the whole pack, but I just wanted to see what it looks like on the edge, on the edge, on the edge, and eventually it says, meneer, sorry, daar's nie genoeg grip hier nie. Unfortunately, let's take that one a little bit wayward. So we were there by Willem Botha and working our way down.
Yeah, Willem Botha, he is 1.8 seconds behind Graham Stephen, but he is 7.8 seconds ahead of the man in the Veloster. That's Johan Ferree in that fourth position. He's got Atti Nagel, that's 6.7 seconds down the road in that fifth position, with Robbie Teings. This is the closest battle between Atti Nagel and Robbie Teings. That is the positions that you see there between Nagel and Teings. Raymond Duggan, 5.8 seconds down the road in seventh position, and another 2.4 seconds down the road, the Pennzoil car of Peter Joubert.
Well, the front eight, not big gaps between them, but then again, there's only 6 minutes and a couple of seconds to go at this stage of the fight. I see Andre Steenkamp has had her off. Let's just have a look, see what happened to Andre Steenkamp. Yep, the same spot that's taken so many underneath the Sambozy Bridge, just carrying a little bit too much. Oh, Sandro Beccari trying to get out of the way, and unfortunately Andre Steenkamp going in there. If I didn't know any better, I would have said there's oil in the circuit because they both went off in the exact same position.
I think as the guy's just getting a little bit more used to the circuit and being a little bit braver, trying to carry a little bit more speed through turn number one, and that catches them all out to run a little bit wide through that corner. But yeah, Peter Joubert in eighth. Then behind him in ninth position is the Hyundai Elantra there of Peter van der Spey. He's 12 seconds down the road from Joubert, and he's 1.6 seconds ahead of this man. That's Stephen McCarthy in the DeWalt Hyundai. Then close on his heels, a cool drive there for Timothy Stanton in 11th position, and he's 8 seconds ahead there of Colin Plitt, who is in 12th position.
That was Sandro Beccari that just came out of the pit, so he obviously went in, sorted out the damage, and came back out again. Colin Plitt's a pretty quiet drive by Colin Plitt. Finds himself just outside of the top 10 is Colin, but he's got a big gap back to Luke Lucchese. So that incident that Luke Lucchese had has obviously cost him very badly, and well, there's just no way to recover from that. You need to get the car back to the pits, and then from there on out, you need to be able to get back into the race as well, and then get your rhythm back as well. So Luke Lucchese, that incident that he had, let's just have a look at that. Luke Lucchese was reversing back, and he got whacked very heavily, and that obviously totaled the car big time, and that was the end of that way. And that was originally what happened there, was the situation with him and Jaco Steyn. Jaco up on the inside, in the blind spot for Luke Lucchese, light touch. Steyn tries to hold him there, but unfortunately was just a little bit too far back. Jaco climbs onto the pedal shifts, reverses the car back. That blinds the oncoming traffic to that man that dives out, and bang, there goes the back of the car. That happened a little while back, but unfortunately not been able to recover very easily from that, Luke Lucchese, and he finds himself a long way down.
Gaza, that seems to have been a theme in the season. What are we in season 4 now for 2022?
Season 7.
Season 7 overall. But that seems to have been a theme this season so far for Luke Lucchesi. It's always been a recovery drive. We haven't seen a clear, clean race from Lucchesi this season yet.
Lucchesi, the cheese man, likes to be the quickest out there. That's what makes him tick. He pushes 11 tenths all the time. That's the way Luke Lucchesi drives. That's what he knows. That's what he does. And he would rather have an off and a comeback and be quicker than everybody else than just sort of like hanging around. Sandro Beccari looks like he's going to hold it off on the right-hand side and let the quicker cars come through. No, that was the car that was supposed to be in pink. But Luke Lucchesi, that's the way he knows how to drive, and that's what he enjoys. And I think for Luke to do, shall we call it a Johan Fourie, it's just not kosher for him. He likes to push it.
Speaking of Johan Fourie dove into the pits with that Hyundai Veloster. Either he was trying something, or it all just went pear-shaped for him, or that Veloster is actually not working in this race. We both made predictions before the meeting started that the Veloster would be one of the cars to take instead of the Elantra. How wrong have we been? Everybody went for the Elantra, and Johan Fourie went for the Veloster, and it's not working for him out there.
And then to turn it upside down, Francois Joubert climbs into a Honda and he tops it out. Johan Fourie was one of the first guys to go, and in fact, he was the second person to go. Well, of the leaders, he was in on lap 24, so 2-3 laps before most of the guys, 27, 26, 26, 27. Pierre Joubert in lap 28. So, as always, Johan Fourie going for the slightly earlier pit stop. But I think he also looks at, if he does a pit stop, where does he come back out into traffic or not traffic? And that's how he often makes up positions.
I think he wanted to try that today, but it dropped him further back from Graham Stephen than what he was before the pit stop. So, I don't think the specific car works well with the track here in the hands of Johan Fourie today. But we've got a nice battle out here for that fifth position. Atti Nachel and Robbie Teings are on it, as we see the Audi of Nachel being reeled in there by Robbie Teings. That Hyundai is on a flyer, and Atti Nachel's going to have to start checking his mirrors because that Elantra is getting closer and closer.
Oh, look how close he is. The classic N design from the Hyundai range. And that's going through turn number 2, otherwise known as the S's, using all of the curbstone and more. Oh, getting very, very close between the two of them. Let's have a little bit of a further shot. Will he have a dive up on the inside? Nope, not enough space to go through there. Let's try and carry as much speed as possible. The next one's going to be the right-hander, and where they're moving towards now is where that accident was between Jaco Steyn and Luke Lucchesi as they go through underneath the bridge. Through the downhill section, that is the downhill section into the last bend and back out into the Sam Posey straight. But we're going to have to go back to Francois Joubert because we exactly on 40 minutes, so 10 minutes to go for Francois Joubert, and he is doing it all right at this stage of the fight. Francois Joubert leading out there very neatly from Graham Stephen, the man in the golf colors. There he is, not far behind him. Willem Botha, he's had a classic ride today. Is Willem Botha, and Johan Fourie 9 seconds back with the monster colors in the Veloster Hyundai in the N livery shape of the bodywork, should I say, and looking pretty decent. Not far behind him, Atti Nachel. Once again, Atti Nachel finds himself in the top 5, but the Bolt man, Robbie Teings, in the Toyota Gazoo entry is not far behind him, and I think he fancies in this last 10 minutes to break into a top 5.
Yeah, I think the Hyundai Elantra being a little bit more composed in the hands there of Robbie Teings than what the Audis seem to be. We thought that we were going to see a lot more domination from the Audis once they get dialed in with the tires and the brakes. But the Hyundais are just dominating here, and not to mention the Honda leading them. But Robbie Teings really seems comfortable. He's starting to challenge for that 5th position. Atti Nachel is going to be in a lot of trouble here as he goes for the inside line. Now, they leave each other alone. A lot of respect between these guys here, between Nachel and Robbie Teings.
That, FC, you were talking about the trends that we've seen through the different seasons as iRacing pretty much got on its legs at the beginning of COVID-19, and Sandra Bakori getting it a little bit wayward there in the background. And we've seen how it's gone through different stages of development of cars and drivers and rigs and people buying fancy equipment and just getting quicker and more consistent. But the main thing is that the quality of the driving has gone up phenomenally. And what's nice to see for all in the Masters class is the respect amongst drivers. As we saw with Pity Hubert, he cost himself to make sure that there wasn't contact between him and the person that was trying to pass him. And that is what we like to see. And that's why 22 entries on a Wednesday night on a regular basis, 22 and more in the West Province Sports and GT Masters. And that all started with a man that, in fact, is not out there tonight, Dr. Mike Berkshire.
Yeah, I was about to say, I never mentioned Dr. Mike's name tonight. He's unfortunately not out there on the circuit this evening, but a lovely a series that was set up here during COVID. And the nice thing is, the moment that we went back to life as normal, these guys still tune in on a Wednesday night behind their sim rig steering wheels to battle it out there. As we see here, they're side by side going into turn number one. Around the outside goes Robbie Tings.
I tell you what, Robbie Tings, I want to see that from inside the car. Let's see what it looks like for Robbie Tings. That's when you dive out and you get the man alongside you. Well, by the time you get in the corner, the man's gone already. And look how he works his way through the apex of the corner. And there, it's still all not over yet, bar the shouting. Now he's on the right position, and that is where he then consummated that move. He takes the curbing on the inside, look in the mirror, and there you see the other car that's in there behind him. So a lovely move there by Robbie Tings, and that on Atinagel.
I would say that's my overtake of the day.
Yes.
Driver of the day nomination, definitely Robbie Tings for that passing maneuver there on Atinagel. That relegates Ati down to 6. Ati not giving up just yet, but he's got a bit of a buffer between himself and Raymond Duggan, who's down there in that 7th position. The other close battle for 9th and 10th is between Peter van der Spy and Timothy Stanton. 4/10 of a second between the two of them. That is the battle you see on track there, with the Van der Spy in the black and yellow car as Stanton runs it a bit wide. Just takes a little bit too much curb there coming out of the final corner, and that drops him back to almost 6/10 of a second now behind Van der Spy, and he's got to do all that work all over again as they sit there behind our race leader, Francois Hubert.
Well, that means Francois Hubert has probably lapped. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Yes, he must have lapped them. And wow, that just highlights exactly how good Francois Hubert has done in this one. Johan Ferry, his normal partner for the 6-hour races, finds himself starting on the second row of the grid and holding onto a top 4. Let's just listen to the revs. Woohoo! Running into the rev limiter as it gets all light just before takeoff speed as you work your way over the top. But you can hear the sound of Timothy Stanton's Honda as he just feathers it slightly, keeps it inside of the curbstone, climbs right in there behind Peter van der Spy and starts getting the drive.
What a beautiful little racetrack, and I want to call it a little racetrack because it's a lot smaller than some of the other tracks that we visit during the season, but a lovely track, and it looks simple, but it's actually so technical, especially with those little rises and those sudden dips and those tricky corners that actually catch you out if you take it a little bit too fast.
That little bit of elevation actually makes the rise and falls is actually quite, even look at that shot there. You can see there's sort of a bit of a downhill wind and then that uphill climb. Now, as you take that uphill climb like that, that's where the car gets light. But look at the corner that they're coming into now. It dips down and then it levels out. So you get the weight of the car burying it into the ground as you come towards the Continental Bridge. And that just gives you that, it feels light as you come towards it. And then it just, as the track starts to rise, it's like digs in and it picks up that grip. And that's why you can exit that corner so fast. As Timothy Stanton wants to have a look up on the inside of Peter van der Spy, later on the brakes, runs it a bit wider. And I think that'll create a little bit of a bigger gap between the two of them. 46 minutes down of the 50-minute race. And, well, everybody has been in and out of the pits. Let's have a look at the gains and losses.
Yeah, up and down the field, your biggest winner so far is Peter van der Spey. He started down in 18th position, managed to fight his way up into that 9th position. Who else has gotten a good gain? Ian Riddle, Mr. Peppa Pig. He's out there in 12th position, gaining 8 positions from the start of this race. And another one who had a good start there was Graham Stephen of the top guys, gaining 4 positions from the start of this race. Your biggest loser, the man who started on pole position, Jaco Steyn, 14 positions lost as he finds himself in 15th.
Yeah, this is what happened with Jaco Steyn. He went up on the inside of Luke Lucchese, in Luke's blind spot, tried to hold onto his nose to try and straighten both of them out, ended up completely sideways across the circuit, managed to get it going again from there, but, well, unfortunately not been able to recover. And being the fastest man out there initially, that's what took Lucchese out of it as well. Being initially the fastest man out there on circuit, I think you'll be very disappointed to be right down now, rounding out the top 15. But he's once again showed that, does he have the pace? Yes. Does he have the ability to ride with the top boys and put the pressure? Yes, he does. No doubt about it.
100% there. Another one of the big losers was Luke Lucchese, losing 7 positions. He's made a bit of a better recovery out there than Jaco Steyn. He finds himself there in 11th position. And then who else have we got out there? We've got Sandra Bakari. He lost 3 positions. But everybody else predominantly gained. But Peter van der Spey, the man on the move, having gained 9 positions. Raymond Duggan had a good one. Timothy Stanton, he makes his way past Van der Spey. That was a cool move.
Not from lack of trying. He's been there for a long, long time. He has. And he eventually, Timothy Stanton, gets past Peter van der Spey. Graham Stephen, the next car that's in there behind him. But remember, Graham Stephen will come up then to lap them at this stage of the fight. 48 minutes and 18 seconds into it. And we've hardly ever looked at the man at the front. Why? Because he's been there all the time. And he just up, dusted, and disappeared. What a fantastic drive today, Francois Joubert.
Yeah, Francois Joubert, he's done it all right. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and the track just came to him. The Honda just works out here, and he's been having a blast out there, just slowly but surely chiseling away at that gap, getting it bigger and bigger as Graham Stephen. He's on song today as well, but he just does not have an answer for that man in the lead. He sits there in that 2nd position, and then Willem Botha in 3rd. Riding on board here with Raymond Duggan. He's about a 2nd off the pace there of Robbie Teings. But Robbie Teings, we missed that one, Gary. Robbie Teings lost that position to Ati Nagel again as they swapped around. And now Robbie Teings has got to do it all over again.
Well, the reason for that is our famous corner, turn number 1. Don't need to have a tractor to cut the grass there. The local race cars do it for you. And battling to get the power down. And Robbie Teings gets it all back together. But that is what cost Robbie Teings there right on the last. 30 seconds to go in this one as we drive on board with the man that's done it all right all day long.
Yeah, this is the final lap here with your race leader, Francois Joubert, as he works his way into the left-hander. Then he's going to work his way towards the right-hander. That is turn number 4. Then he's going to climb the no-name straight up towards turn number 5, the uphill. That's where he's going to find himself now. As he goes up that climb over the rise, just gets it light and almost loses it. Now heads toward a turn number 6, the West Bend, underneath the Haggerty Bridge, drops it down to the downhill. That is your final corner. He's going to make it towards the start-finish line now. Your race leader and winner, car number 304, the Honda Civic of Francois Joubert in the lead.
Oh, brilliant drive by Francois Joubert. I tell you what, he'll be super chuffed with that one. Graham Stephen, his best result for a long time as well.
Willem Botha brings it home in 3rd position. Johan Fourie will be making his way through the final corner now and towards the start-finish line. Across the line he goes in 4th position, 10.9 seconds down the road. Ati Nagel will be the next man through in that 5th position. And unfortunately, Robbie Teings not being able to catch up there to him as they make their way down the straight. Ati Nagel did it all right in Robbie Teings in 6th, and then Raymond Duggan brings it home in 7th.
God, such a small gap between the two of them. 0.2 of a second eventually between them. Ian Riddle still to come through. He is coming through to take over his position. And that pretty much wraps it all up. I think everybody's worked their way through already. Let's have a look at the overall results for this one. There it comes up. Man, oh man, oh man. The best driver on the day, Francois Hubert.
Yeah, Francois Hubert did it all right to take home the win there, 6.1 seconds ahead of the second place man, Graham Stephen. Graham Stephen, as you said, Gary, having one of his best drives in a long time, kept his nose clean, and he was super duper quick out there. To drive away from something like Willem Botha after not having a few good results out there. So welcome back, Graham Stephen. Willem Botha third. Johan Fourie finds himself down there in fourth. I think he's not too happy with the velocity that he chose for this race. Ati Nagel rounds off your top five.
Let's just have a look back at that original grid, if we can get it. No, I don't think it'll come up. I just wanted to have a look at the original grid. But Francois Hubert, Graham Stephen from Willem Botha, and Johan Fourie having started on the second row of the grid and ending up there. Ati Nagel, very, very good. Once again, doing a top five. The Boltman, Robbie Teens, is in there, and he wasn't that far off at all, was Robbie Teens. From Raymond Duggan, Peter Hubert, the sportsman of the day, from Timothy Stainton, and then Captain Pete, Peter van der Spey, rounds out the top 10.
Lucchese did a wonderful job to do a recovery drive up into that 11th position. Ian Riddle, Peppa Pig out there in 12th, with Stephen McCarthy in 13th, Colin Plitt in 14th, and Jaco Steyn. It all went pear-shaped for him, starting on pole, and then that incident with Lucchese, unable to recover from that one, and he finished this race in 15th.
I think you're very disappointed with that, as will Luke Lucchese as well. I mean, they recovered to 11th and 15th, but that was about as good as it was going to get. But keep in mind, the fact that Jaco Steyn could go one-on-one with the pace of Luke Lucchese is a feather in his cap. The fact that he was in Luke's blind spot was unfortunate, and then you could see he still tried to press him in the right direction, but by that stage Luke was too far ahead of him, and it actually turned Luke around. So very disappointing from that point of view, but very inspirational that Jaco Steyn has now become one of the very quick top runners up there. Andre Steenkamp, unfortunately, finds himself 2 laps down. Sandro Vicari had that unfortunate off. Gerald Maget, Leonardo Vicari, Herman Lazarus, Willem Pina, and Swace Hubert finds himself a little bit further down. And, that's not where he would have wanted to be, but obviously went all wrong for Willem Pina and Swace Hubert right at the beginning. And Herman Lazarus was out of it with 31 laps, so he didn't see all of that race either. But for the boys up front, brilliant stuff. I tell you what, I think everybody has got lots of respect for one another, and that is why we are now in the 7th season of Western Province Sports and GT Masters, coming to you from the Lime Rock Park racetrack and brought to you by Second Gear Productions down here in Veldhoven in Cape Town. FC Nieuwoud, big thanks to you on behalf of Second Gear Productions. A closing word from your side, the man from Rage Productions.
Look, it was fun being behind the microphone once again for this one. Some awesome racing out there, and we look forward to the next one. We'll see you same time, same place next week.
Hell, we will. And just for interest's sake, those of you that aren't on the internal groups, an idea was put forward for next season, which will be season number 8. Have 10 or more cars and tracks, probably 12 or 13, that you can choose from. When we go live, all of a sudden you choose a track and you choose a car. You can't practice before the time. You don't know which car or which track it's going to be. Inklim en ry. A lot of the guys said, I like that idea. That gives you, for the guy that works long hours, doesn't have time to practice and go and do setups and what have you, it just brings you back to basics, and it just opens the whole field up. And I think that is very possible. And the reason why they say 13 cars and 13 tracks is because when there's only 2 or 3 races to go, practice those 3. When there's 1 race to go, there's still a possibility of 4 different cars and 4 different tracks that you can be at. And I mean, most of the guys have bought all of these circuits and cars already, so there's no additional cost. Just a closing thought from Second Gear Production side. From our side, Gary Fleming, thanks very much for joining us, and see you at a racetrack soon. Goodbye, everybody.